So I've got all the panels for the various heaters pulled off at the moment to clean them up and paint them. And so I figured this would be a good point to talk through some of how, at least on mine, again in international, how these are all plumbed. I'm sorry I sound like deaf. I'm a little under the weather. So the heaters in these things, the rear, the fronts, and the stairwell are all run off of a loop coming off of the engine. So engine coolant, they're not electric or anything like that. So a loop coming off of the engine right here. There's a supply and a return coming off the engine. And they hit here. One thing they're going to hit here is what's called a boost pump. That's essentially a flow boost pump. And then they're going to split, and they're going to head off to two directions. In my case, it's going to head off into the bus. Where it's going to come in on that blue line right there. The first place it's going to hit is this radiator that's in the driver's console here. The seat's usually here. It's then going to flow out through to what's the rear radiator. That fluid is flowing basically all the time. It's going to then circulate back, on mine at least. It's going to head back, and then it's going to flow back through this radiator before it finally returns to the engine. On my bus, when you press, where is it? Boost pump, right there. That's what turns on that pump. It essentially just cycles the coolant a little more effectively. Then I've got several heat options: rear heater, driver heater, step well, and defrost. All right, so what are these all doing? So step well is relatively obvious. Step well runs this little squirrel cage, double squirrel cage blower right here. And it's pulling air in through this intake right here across the radiator, and then it's blowing it into this duct system up here, and then through here and out to heat the stairwell. Importantly, there's also a duct going up to this big box right here. This is a big hollow box, and this box traverses the whole way under the dash and is for the defroster. All right, so coming back to that in a second. Next button here, driver heater. That driver heater turns this little squirrel cage, another squirrel cage blower on and off. When the whole mechanism, when that sheet is in place here, that's going to pull air through the underside here up into this cavity, and it's going to blow it out right here. Now, on mine, I have a dial that says heat for passenger or driver, and that's for a little louver. As you pull that louver, it causes air either to divert up here or out this little hole right here for the rear passenger. So that's what that's doing there. If you use the defroster, that is this fan. That fan's pulling off the same radiator as the driver heater. So that's pulling air through here up into this cavity and then pushing it. You can't see, but this is plumbed up in here into this same big plastic air box. So if you want to most effectively defrost your windshield, you've got to turn on both the defroster as well as the stepwell heater. That'll cause the most coolant across the most coils to come up across the windshield. I would very strongly recommend, and I'm going to do the same, to not delete all of these coolant lines. It's very common. A lot of folks will just come right up here, because it's easy to do. They'll come right up here, and they'll either loop these over, or worse, they'll just turn them off and cut them. Technically, either of those would work. It's not a good idea. They're auxiliary, but still, you want to loop them over. But then you effectively have no heat inside of the bus. And further, even if you're going to put a mini split or something else in the back to heat and cool, you've got no way to defrost your windshield. So at a bare minimum, keep the squirrel cage that's over there and that radiator. I really would advise you keep that. And the stepwell heater, that's going to give you, especially if you're in a colder climate, that's going to give you the best ability to defrost your windshield. And then from just a heater perspective, these are actually relatively efficient. And, well, heating with engine coolant is relatively efficient. It's already hot. These things are loud and inefficient, but you can very easily get nicer impeller style radiators and fans from Jegs and some other places to replace these things. So I guess this is just to say, think twice before you go and tear out all of the existing heat plumbing, because it can actually be relatively beneficial.